about that. I don't know what happened there.
Are we going live?
We are. Good.
Welcome to the January 2nd, 2025 meeting of Manhattan Community Board 5 Land Use Housing and Zoning Committee. I'm Nancy Gosho. I'm the chair of the committee. Julie Chu is our vice chair. And we would now like to introduce our committee members, starting with my left.
I'm Zool Zolkowitz.
And Seth Borden.
Janice Young.
Encore DeWall.
Michael Greeley.
Julie Chu.
And online we have Miles.
Miles Kerwin.
Thank you. Also joining our meeting tonight, we have we have a fellow why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Isabel. Nice to meet you, everyone.
Okay, and we have someone from the Department of City Planning, is that right?
He's an attendee. You want me to put him to be a panelist? Oh, sure.
But who else's picture are we looking at tonight on the screen?
You're looking at IPO.
Oh, okay. Okay, fine. Good. Okay, thank you. We'll start with it. Okay. Before we get our agenda going, we don't have any items to vote on tonight. If we did, though, they would be voted on the full board on Thursday, January 16th. So just keep that in mind, but we are not having any voting items tonight. Before we start our agenda, I just want to know if there are any members of the public or committee members that have new business for us to think about. And if you do, would you please raise your hand? And Julie will call on you. So anyone have any new business they'd like to bring before our committee? Raise your hand, please, and Julie will call on you. No hands? Okay. All right. So we will run the meeting in this order. After each presentation, committee members will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then we will take questions and comments from our public attendees. While there's no time limit on the comments and questions, we ask that you speak succinctly and avoid repetition of a prior speaker. Julie will call on you when you raise your hand, and the same thing for those of you here in the room. You'll raise your hand and call on you. After the public questions and comments, we'll go into our business session where only committee members and board members can participate in the discussion. There'll be no further input from the public unless it's really necessary. Board members will be promoted to panelists for the business session. And so there are no motions that we are going to have tonight, but we do have three items that on our agenda. First of all, we have an update from the Independent Budget Office's report on affordable housing. We have an introduction and projects and updates from our CB5 fellow from the Fund for the City of New York. And then we will have a brief committee discussion to plan for the upcoming Midtown South mixed use plan. And that will be just committee members in that discussion. So why don't we start with the Independent Budget Office's report on affordable housing.
Great, thank you so much. I just want to do a quick sound check. I want to make sure folks can hear us okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. And I believe we have a slide deck to share as well.
I will share my screen.
Perfect. So hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having us. Happy New Year to you all.
Emily,
Yes, go ahead.
Someone had a question.
Give us your full name slowly. Give us your name.
Okay, so sure, we'll start there. So hi, everyone. My name is Emily Pramick. I'm a lead budget and policy analyst with the New York City Independent Budget Office, IBO for short. I am joined by my colleague and teammate, Sarah Internicola, who is actually going to be doing the bulk of this presentation. She's our housing analyst, and this is her work that she'll be presenting on tonight. I want to just first, though, take a couple minutes to introduce the Independent Budget Office and the IBO. I know a lot of folks may have worked with us before, but we may be new to some of you. And I want to give a sense of the work that we do and how we might be helpful to you as a community board. So if you can go ahead and run. Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So we are a city government agency. We are somewhat unique in that we are not a mayoral agency. So we actually don't serve under any elected officials in the city government. Instead, we are independently established in the city charter as our own entity. Our role is to provide nonpartisan research on the city's budget and related policies, which, if you're familiar with the budget, is pretty much any policy that could affect the city. And we do that in two main ways. So you can keep clicking through. Thanks, Sarah. So we have two types of work products that we put out. We do a mandated response to each of the mayor's financial plans every year. And there are 3 of those, which I'll kind of walk you through briefly in the next slide. We also do all kinds of topic-specific research. So for my part, I am an analyst who focuses on transportation. Sarah's our housing analyst. Really any city agency or policy area you can think of, we have someone working on that and dedicated to that. And we do topic-specific reports to sort of help provide more information on those policy areas. I will say one thing that we don't do is we do not provide policy recommendations. We will provide you and other readers with timely and accurate information on various policies, but we won't go so far as to say the city should adopt policy A or policy B or should repeal a certain law. Those are the kind of decisions and value judgments that we think are best left to elected officials, advocates, community members like yourselves. But we will try and give you enough information to have an informed debate and participation in that process. Okay, so we can move to the next slide. We can't leave any presentation without giving you an update on where we are in the budget process. So right now we are in the middle of fiscal year 2025. So we just celebrated the new year, but we're already halfway through on the fiscal side. The fiscal year for the city runs from July 1st through June 30th. And things really kick off with the adopted budget that's released every year by July 1st. We actually put out our latest report was a reforecast of what the mayor and OMB released in their first financial plan that comes out in November after the adopted budget is released. That's really a look back at kind of closing out the last fiscal year and looking ahead to see what the city's financial position is into the new year. We provided our own analysis of the mayor's numbers and estimates. And so we do have a link to that report I'll drop it in the chat as well, so you can check that out. Right now, we are gearing up for the mayor's preliminary budget, which comes out in mid-January every year. And that really kicks off the fiscal year negotiations. It really kicks off the budget cycle between the mayor and the city council. The mayor will be presenting his balanced budget for the upcoming fiscal year. So we'll be looking at that really closely and providing our own estimates of that. And then coming up again in the spring, in April, there's the executive budget. That's another release from the mayor. We put out a report around that as well that incorporates some state budget estimates. And then finally, at the end of June, we have another adopted budget and another, fiscal year starts off. Suffice it to say, there's a lot of exciting negotiations ahead, a lot of information that will be coming out from the mayor and from OMB, and we'll be right alongside them providing our own numbers to you that we hope will be useful. If you would like to learn more about the budget process, you can access our Budget Basics series, which we have linked in that QR code on the screen. We'll also send another link for that. Those documents give you more detail on the city's budget process. They also we have special publications on school budgets that may be useful and interesting to you. We also have a special guide to the capital budget, which is probably the most relevant for housing and land use. But yeah, plenty of resources for you. And we do take research requests. So we are always happy to hear from you if you have research ideas or questions you want answered. We'll always do our best. We may not be able to do a full report or have the data to answer it, but we'll at least try and point you in the right direction. So that's who we are. With that, I will turn it over to Sarah to introduce her work and present her paper.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. and thanks again, CB5, for having us tonight. So I'm going to now talk through our recent report, Inclusionary Housing and City Subsidies. And can everyone hear me okay?
Can I ask a question before we start? Can we get the slides and post them on our website? like-
I think that might be possible. I think I'd have to check with someone, but I did email the slides to the district manager earlier.
We are encouraging as many people as we can to come to our website for the various things that we are discussing and posting. And so people have come to understand that as a resource. If you can't give us the slides, maybe you could send us some links so we could put those on our website. We'd like to make our website much more information rich than it is now. And it would be helpful if you could help us with that.
For sure.
Sorry.
I can definitely get back to you about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So yeah, our recent report, Inclusionary Housing and City Subsidies. The context for this project is that housing has been a really key issue for the Adams administration. As you know, City of Yes has gotten a lot of attention and was recently passed. So we wanted to explore how Adams' strategies for new housing production compare and contrast with those used by prior administrations. So this research is a look back at how Bloomberg and de Blasio use city-level housing programs, specifically city subsidies and inclusionary housing, to produce new affordable housing, and how that compares to the current and proposed approaches under the Adams administration. And our goal is to understand the outcomes of these strategies and what it means for Adams' newly passed universal affordability preference, which is one type of inclusionary housing program. For context, affordable housing development is facilitated by the Department of Housing Preservation and Development. This is the city agency that carries out the programs we discussed in this report and also works with developers to allocate those programs and benefits and just make those affordable housing projects pencil out. And one more note is that in this report, we're only looking at new construction programs and not affordable housing preservation. All right, so the report is called Inclusionary Housing and City Subsidies, so I'll just give a quick overview of what each of those things are. So city subsidies, these are grants or low-cost loans for housing projects that are provided to developers by HPD. They're funded through HPD's capital budget. Each program has specific project and affordability requirements in their term sheets. Those are found on HPD's website. And a few examples that you may be familiar with are Extremely Low and Low Income Affordability Program, or ELA, Mix and Match, and the Senior Affordable Rental Program. So now, inclusionary housing. This is a zoning tool that's known as a density bonus. And the idea is that if you include affordable housing in your development, you get the rights to build higher than the zoning would otherwise allow. This program's not a subsidy, it's just a zoning program, so it's not officially tied to city spending. There are a few inclusionary housing programs existing now. Voluntary inclusionary housing is opt-in, MIH, mandatory inclusionary housing is required in some areas, and the universal affordability preference, now adopted, is another opt-in program. And the deal with UAP is that developers can build 20% higher than the zoning allows, but all of that new housing has to be affordable. So the idea behind this program is that for a housing project to succeed, it needs enough rental income or income from other sources like subsidies over time to break even with the cost of development and maintenance costs. Requiring affordable units is basically providing less rental income to the projects. But the benefit of inclusionary housing programs is that you can get more revenue from extra market rate units from that density bonus, being able to build higher, and that kind of makes up for those losses on required affordable units. The success of these programs is partly influenced by market rents in an area, since that kind of determines how substantial the benefit is of that extra floor area. The availability of tax exemptions is also a big piece of it, because MIH and UAP are both premised on the availability of the 485X or former 421A tax exemption. And finally, according to HPD, these two programs inclusionary housing and city subsidies are intended to be used together to produce more housing or deeper affordability than otherwise possible in order to achieve the city's housing goals. So as we'll see in our findings, these inclusionary housing programs do actually end up impacting the city's budget. So a little context of housing under Eric Adams. His housing plan is called Housing Our Neighbors, released in 2022. His key initiative is the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity. It's a package of zoning reforms to make development easier across the city. And as mentioned, it was just recently passed. In some ways, he's taken a different approach to housing than past mayors. He's really emphasized increasing overall supply and reducing barriers to development as a means of promoting affordability, rather than specifically focusing on the supply of affordable housing, as some past mayors have. For one example, his moonshot goal of 500,000 units is total units, not just affordable units. There are some similarities between Adams and past mayors, though. For one thing, he has emphasized adding new funding to HPD's capital budget, which funds city subsidies for affordable housing and preservation programs. This is commonly a really central part of mayors' housing plans and definitely was emphasized under de Blasio and Bloomberg. He's also proposed this new inclusionary housing program, UAP, which has similarities to the existing programs MIH and VIH. So these similarities are kind of the jumping off point of our analysis in this report. So here we map out where the 3 different inclusionary housing programs apply across the city. We have VIH in yellow, MIH in red, and UAP in blue. You can see that this blue portion of the map is expanding to much more of the city than either the existing programs covered. And looking at the Manhattan CB5 area, just to give some local context, a lot of it was already covered by the voluntary inclusionary housing program, but it does appear to have new areas that will be eligible for universal affordability preference. One thing to note about this expansion of inclusionary housing is that it expands to a lot of lower rent areas of the city that previously didn't have any density bonuses. And as I mentioned, the success of these programs is partly dependent on the market rents in an area, and that kind of influences how much additional city subsidy might be required to make those projects succeed. Here we're looking at how many units were produced using those different programs since 2010. VIH is in blue here, MIH is in red, and city subsidies with no density bonus is in yellow, and the number of units are on the y-axis. We can see overall that the role of inclusionary housing programs has grown since 2010, and in almost every year since 2017, when MIH was introduced, the majority of new units from all these programs have used some form of density bonus. Here, we're now looking at how the city spent money on these different programs, or on subsidies since 2010. So now on the y-axis is city dollars spent, and we're comparing city spending on those 3 different programs from the previous chart. So first, you can see an overall increase in spending on new construction subsidies since 2010. But one important takeaway here is that a lot of projects receiving city subsidies are also using density bonuses, as you can see with the blue and red parts of the column. So the share of those has grown since 2017. Also from 2017 to 2022, the majority of city subsidies went to projects that were also using inclusionary housing. That was as high as 79% of city subsidies in 2022. We also found that from 2010 to 2023, 20% of all VIH projects use city subsidies. And then for MIH, since its introduction in 2017, half of all those projects use city subsidies. So overall, we see a very clear connection between inclusionary housing and city subsidies. Those programs are very commonly used together. Next, we're looking at affordability levels of these various approaches to new affordable housing. We have affordability levels color-coded on the left. And here we're breaking down the affordability levels of units produced using either MIH on the left or MIH on the right, and then with or without subsidy, with subsidy on top, no subsidy on the bottom. So first you can see in these charts, projects that use MIH and city subsidy produce the most units overall out of all of these methods. We also see that for both MIH and VIH, subsidized units are more often affordable at the deepest affordability levels. So that's the red and yellow parts of the bar here. The top two charts show many more of these very low and extremely low units than the charts on the bottom here. Yeah, so for some of the options of MIH requiring deep affordability, it's a lot harder to accomplish that without additional city funding for those projects. And finally, we're looking at affordability levels of projects that use just city subsidies and no density bonuses. And we find that this has produced the most deeply affordable units at the very low and extremely low income levels. Overall, for all these units, 2/3 of those were at deep affordability levels. So now just to summarize our findings, we find that city subsidies and inclusionary housing programs have both played an important role in new housing construction over the last, since 2010, with the role of inclusionary housing growing overall. Inclusionary housing and city subsidies are very often used together, and using them together instead of alone can achieve more units or deeper affordability than otherwise possible. We saw that projects with city subsidies and no density bonuses have produced the most deeply affordable units, while inclusionary housing alone has produced few deeply affordable units. Finally, thinking about what this means for the new universal affordability preference, this will likely require more funding for city subsidies for those UAP projects in order to reach the deepest affordability levels and to expand to lower rent areas. All right, that concludes my presentation. Thank you. And if you're interested in seeing the full report, we have QR codes on this slide.
Thank you. I'm going to start. I have two quick questions. One is, you said that you have not done anything on studying the preservation of affordable units. Is that something we could request from you?
It's definitely possible. We didn't look at preservation. I'm sorry.
On preserving affordable units that are already built. That's a big concern, so.
Definitely. It's still a big part of every mayor's housing plan. Just something we didn't look at in this report. There might be past IBO work on preservation, but definitely a possibility for a request.
So should we submit a formal request to you, or can you take what I'm asking you today and come back to us?
That is something we'd have to discuss with our team, but we can work together to, kind of craft a request, see what information we have and what data is available.
That's one ask we would like to have from this committee. The second one I have is, so you said that the mayor's moonshot is 500,000 new units. How many of those do you anticipate would be affordable of the 500,000 new units? You broken that down at all? And could you?
We haven't done our own projection of that. We have heard in a council meeting, HPD say that their goal is 200,000 affordable units over, I'm sorry, I can't remember if it's the next 10 or 15 years, but one of those. So we don't have our own number for that, but there are estimates out there.
Is that another request we could make? The point I'm making is we're all very excited about these new programs, but our main concern is affordability.
Yes.
That's the thing that we're really concerned about, and we want these programs to succeed and improve the quantities of available affordable units and preserve the affordable units we already have. So those are really huge issues for this committee. So please take that into consideration, maybe get back to us.
Yeah, if I
Question-
could jump in, actually, the best thing to do, I mean, we'll take those questions, we've noted your questions, and we'll take them back. But if you have more questions or items that you'd like us to look into, the best way to reach out to us is just shoot us an email with the questions that you have, and we'll take a look.
Okay, fine. So as we're going through our questions, Julie, do you want to keep track of the things that people may want the IBO to investigate further? Okay, Zool.
Yeah, Emily, Sarah, if this isn't your purview, can you tell us anything about city subsidies for things like the FSHEPS program, vouchers? So as opposed to subsidies to developers, subsidies that go directly to renters.
This is part of housing. Zool?
Did you say the City FEPS program? So that isn't specifically in my portfolio, but that is something we've done work on. A different analyst at IBO has done work on that. I could send you a link to those reports.
And do you have any idea offhand how it compares just in terms of total numbers?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but can definitely get back to you.
Thank you.
Julie.
You mind going back to your conclusion slide? Because I guess I'm wondering why you paid for some of those points that you got to. Because, I mean, first, why would developers build inclusionary housing without subsidies? I guess that would be one question when I look at your conclusion slide. I don't know. And there was another question, but if you could bring that screen back up.
Yeah. So it is very unique to each project, how the benefits play out. Like for some projects, the benefit of the density bonus from inclusionary housing can balance out the affordable units required. So for example, like a very large project with a lot of market rate units might be more likely to succeed without subsidy than like a small project that's trying to use inclusionary housing. But it's still at the city's discretion, like to decide which projects they think need subsidy to pencil out or, to succeed. And that those are all like negotiated between developers and HPD.
I guess my other question, the third bullet point, where you projects with subsidies and low density bonus have created the most deeply affordable units. Are those projects the ones that HPD produces where it's not inclusionary housing? And is the reason those are the most deeply affordable is because those are 100% affordable housing projects?
Yeah, I think that's correct. So those would be the ones that are like specifically programs like Ella or Sarah or Mix and Match that have specific affordability targets and are often targeted toward those deeper affordability levels. Yeah, does that help?
And just a follow up to that, Julie.
We're gonna give some, Anchor.
So another question to add to our list. Is there any research done by your organization on housing projects that don't pencil or housing that doesn't get created because of mandates for affordable housing that isn't subsidized or isn't realistic for current market conditions?
That's a really good question, and I don't think is something we've looked into, but definitely going to jot that down.
Just to explain why I'm asking the question, it's
Mhm.
you have charts like that, and so it sort of suggests like, oh, we should have requirements for X amount of deeply affordable units, and if perhaps even if they're not subsidized, you'll get the most. But actually, I suspect what would happen is you just get the least new housing built, period, if you do things like that. But it's hard to know without having a comparison to say, well, what doesn't pencil anymore?
How would you even go about researching that though?
They've done research on that, for example, in San Francisco, they did a very deep affordability requirement that was so deep that basically new construction stopped briefly, is my understanding. And then they had, you talk to developers. I mean, these folks would know better than I would on how to kind of estimate those sorts of numbers, but talk to developers, see what kind of projects can be built, what can't be built. Like if a certain level of affordable housing is not subsidized, can the project pencil at all? How much would it cost? How much does each subsidized unit cost? They have estimates on that. And then see
Right.
what if your profit margin becomes less than say like treasuries, no one's going to build that. Why wouldn't you just get a return on your money that's risk-free rather than something that is,
I'm just saying it seems hypothetical. That's all.
It's not.
I don't think it is,
Like how'd you estimate?
but it's for them to.
Maybe form in a question, Myrtle, or do you have a question?
I just want more clarification on Julie's question, because I mean so any sort of a affordability bonus, all of the additional units are affordable, deeply affordable units. So what really would be the incentive without a subsidy to build? To take advantage of that 20%? I'm not clear on that.
What would they build without subsidy?
Right.
Um,
All the additional units are affordable, right? I mean, that's the sort of the mechanism.
Part of the way they designed the UAP program, and the report gets into this topic a little bit more, is that it's designed to be used with the 485X program, which also has affordability requirements, but you can kind of like double dip on like UAP and 485X affordability requirements. So basically, if you're already using 45X and you want this like really valuable tax exemption, you're already providing affordable units. So if you're opting into UAP, then you already are meeting the affordability requirements, and it's basically, the density bonus is sort of like more market rate units in a way.
Follow-up question.
Yeah, so thank you for responding to that. And that's part of the new program, right? UAP, you have to do 60% AMI to get that subsidy. But before, with inclusionary housing, in the previous administration, it was the same. AMI were the same, so you would use both subsidy and the bonus at the same time.
Mhm.
There's a difference when you like compare all these programs. It's hard to compare them because it's slightly different. Your analysis.
We do have a table in the report that compares all the inclusionary housing programs and all their like benefits and affordability requirements. Yeah. And sorry, the audio just got a little bit quiet for me.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay. Michael, speak up loud. Outside
Well,
voice.
I guess I'm still trying to figure this out. So is the mechanism the tax incentive, or is the mechanism the density bonus? What produces the affordable housing?
It's kind of an all of the above.
Well, what produces more?
So we didn't look specifically at the tax incentives in this report, so I can't answer that question specifically, but they are often used together and they're designed to be used together.
So your question, Michael, is which tax incentive versus density bonus, which one produces more affordable units?
Yes.
Now it's gonna be
Well,
different.
I will say I think the tax incentive is more widely used across the city. But yeah, I don't have any specific numbers.
One of the reasons I'm rephrasing some of these questions is we have our fellow who is going to be studying a lot of this, and she's gathering some of the questions that we have as well. So we're doing a two-pronged thing here, a discussion. And I guess if Janice or Seth, do either of you have any questions before I go back to Zool? Okay, Zool, follow-up question.
So Sarah, what percentage of the overall capital budget goes to Ella and Sarah?
That is a great question. I'm actually in the process of doing some research on HPD's capital budget.
Terribly important, because this speaks both to what Julie's asking, what Anchor's pointing out. Because we need to have some kind of understanding of what these subsidies are doing. right? So right now, it would seem that most of the subsidies, whether they're bonuses or whatever it is, are going to developers who are trying to pencil out how this works to get this affordable housing. Does it pay for us simply to put money into building the housing ourselves?
It's a great question.
Can we get an answer to it?
They don't make policy.
Frank?
No, it's not a policy question.
It's a financial
I'd
question.
like to know what
It's an-
percentage of the
It's
budget.
it's a financial investment question.
Exactly.
Ankur brought that. I think that was your point, right,
Yeah.
Ankur?
In part, I was not suggesting that we pay for it,
I know
like, we
that-
change the tax bills for everyone to pay for it. Another solution would be to just
I
allow
wasn't
more housing.
suggesting what you were saying, but what you
Yeah.
pointed out really speaks to that, because, I mean, do we want a program that makes it possible for the developers to do this? Or is there just so much money that we could spend and do it ourselves? I don't know.
So
We don't have
now we're in
information.
discussion, so let's hear any other questions and anything from the public, then we'll come back and discuss this. Isabel, what's your question?
I just wanted to clarify about.
We
the
can't hear you loud, outside voice.
Sorry, my boiler's on. I wanted to hear about the timelines for the different programs. Which ones are permanently affordable, or at what point do some expire?
Let's see. Great question. I believe MIH and UAP are both requiring permanently affordable units. I'm not 100% sure about VIH, but we do have that information in the report
Thank you.
for sure.
Miles? Anything? No, okay.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? Did we have everybody? Okay, what about, let's open up to see if the public is there and if they have any questions. Oh, we have Samir, Samir, do we want to upgrade him to a panelist?
He's upgraded.
Oh, he is, okay. Samir, what's your question?
Oh, I have no questions, just putting my
Okay.
camera on so you can see my
Anyone-
face.
Okay, so anyone else from the public, or there's no one from the public? No one from the public. Okay, so public session is closed. And now we can go back to comments from our committee, or we can continue the discussion that Ankur and Zool were having that I kind of shut down early. Yeah, anything else you want to say?
I don't think you shut it down.
Okay.
Because I think the question is really going back to IBO. Can we get some idea of what the percentage that is spent on programs like Sarah and Ella as opposed to the subsidies and bonuses? And that's very important to us.
Yeah,
Would you-
no, that information is definitely something in our wheelhouse. Just don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but definitely something we can look into and work with you guys to.
Let's add that to the requests that we're gonna put together in an email to you, okay? Because they can go through all of them and respond. Any other questions or comments from our committee or from our fellow? Okay, I think then we can move on to our next topic. Thank you both very much. It was a great presentation. We're very happy to have you come to us, and I hope we can get your slides and keep getting more information from you, because we have lots of questions. And I think you can help us.
Great.
We'll
Thanks so much
definitely
for
be in
having us.
touch. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, so now we would like to have our fellow introduce herself, and she has a presentation from the city, Fund for the City of New York.
Hi, everyone. Let me share my
You
screen.
need to turn your volume up. You need to turn your volume.
Maybe your
if you can.
speakers.
Is that our speakers? Okay,
Okay, is this working?
No. Can we
No.
do
It's working, it's just.
It's on her end because we were
Maybe
hearing
for a
them
Yeah.
earlier.
I think that the volume is on her,
yeah,
is
okay.
on her end.
Microphone.
How is this?
The same, just speak loud.
Okay. I'm yelling, so there must be something wrong with my computer. Sorry about that, everyone. Let me share my screen. Okay.
What's happening?
It's about Jordan.
Isabel Jordan.
Right. All right, is everything okay? Technically?
Yeah,
Okay, beautiful.
yeah.
All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me at this meeting and at CB5. I've been to a few community boards before, and already you seem like a very sharp bunch, so I'm excited to be working together. First, I will introduce a bit about the FCNY. I will talk about myself and dive into details about the project I'll be working on for the next few months. So what is FCNY? This acronym stands for the Fund for the City of New York, which was founded in 1968 by the Ford Foundation with an expressed purpose to improve the lives of all New Yorkers. FCNY provides loan financing and fiscal sponsorship to community-based organizations. It awards public servants and teachers with substantial financial support, and it runs educational programs and studies, including the NYC True Cost of Living measure. Fun fact, this study found that the real living wage in our district is over $56 an hour. And the educational program most relevant today is their Community Planning Fellowship, which places graduate students at community boards to offer increased project capacity while equipping students with firsthand community planning experience. Project fellows must be second-year graduate students in urban planning, architecture, urban design, historic preservation, public policy, or public health. And from that pool, candidates are chosen from 7 schools: Baruch, City College, Columbia, Hunter, NYU, the New School, and Pratt. And here are some of my fellow cohort from this year. So who is this mysterious fellow? Surprise, it's me. Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm a lifelong New Yorker and lifelong public school student, which I'm very proud of. On screen are some of the institutions that have educated me, the organizations that have provided me with foundational experiences. Before graduate school, my background was in the world of food access, food service, and local food systems. And for the past few years, I've been pursuing a master's of urban planning from Hunter College. It was a bit of a career pivot, but I do think I was destined to end up in planning since my parents met on the 2 train. I'm very happy to share that I graduated a bit earlier than expected last week. I took evening and night classes while working as a farm stand manager and compost coordinator at Grow NYC, and this past summer as a planning intern at the Madison Avenue Business Improvement District. It was amazing to work with luxury stakeholders 3 days a week and then play with food scraps for the next 3, but both roles showed me the incredible ways that diverse New Yorkers benefit from a strengthened and programmed public realm. And I particularly enjoyed getting to visit several community boards across the Bronx and Brooklyn to promote our food access programming and special events. So I'm excited to have been placed at CB5 through FCNY. This district is unique and intense, and this project is a big project, but I'm up for the challenge. CB5 put out a project proposal to create an affordable housing plan modeled after a plan published by Community Board 4 in 2022. This plan situates CB5 as a commercial and business district with the potential to become more residential through the Midtown South rezoning and the Penn Station redevelopment plan. Of course, our recommendations must account for the capacity of existing and potential amenities. So part of my research will also deal with ensuring all housing is proposed alongside quality of life improvements. So far, I've begun using open data resources to pursue the following 3 research goals: evaluating existing housing stock, forecasting future residential growth, and identifying publicly owned sites for affordable housing. These 3 research areas will form the structure of a final report and presentation to be held in April, which will provide CB5 leadership with actionable steps for implementation. Just like the issue of amenities, there are ongoing questions that continue to influence my work, including what types of affordability subsidies to utilize. So the previous presentation was super topical. What types of floor plans or family types to focus on, and what parts of City of Yes are going to be most relevant to our district. I thought it would be a helpful update to share some of the resources I've been using to form research questions and hunt for data-driven answers. So as you can see on screen, these range from lot level tax data to citywide resolution amendments. And I would be remiss to pass an opportunity to ask a group of housing experts if there are resources I should investigate that I have thus far overlooked. So what are our next steps? I've created a project plan reviewed by Julie to complete this project in the right time frame. I'll be focusing immediately on aligning housing costs with AMI categories, determining the spatial distribution of affordable units within the district. At a meeting in mid-December, alongside my fellow Sonia, who couldn't be here tonight, we discussed setting up a meeting with George James to review zoning, as well as creating a liaison relationship with a contact or point person at the DCP. So if there are other connections that I can utilize, I would really appreciate that guidance as well.
Isabel, in
Yes.
terms of presentation, there's a black box that is was covering up some text at the top. Oh, very good. Thank you.
Is that fixed? All right, sorry about that. That's all I have though. So thank you very much for your time. I've included my contact information on screen, which is where I'd be happy to receive guidance and start fielding questions about my project as it progresses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from our committee? Anyone have? Zool.
Yeah, so welcome, Isabel. Thank you so much. I kind of threw this back at the IBO, but maybe this is something you would consider. Can we expect the private sector to build truly affordable housing in Community Board 5? Or does this need to be perhaps a public private nonprofit project?
I think the second answer is what I'm more interested in instinctually and based on what I've seen so far. I still have to, ensure that that answer is backed by data and not purely ideology. So I will come back to you with a much better answer. But yeah, I think working with affordable developers or any sort of, community ownership would be a really interesting way to ensure permanent affordability. Yes, I see a question from Samir.
Yeah, I'll send in an email too, but I know that the borough president's office, they did a housing Manhattanites plan where they looked at, I believe, every city-owned and maybe state-owned and federally owned site in the city in the different community districts. So perhaps it's worth talking to them or someone at their office. And then on the point of truly affordable housing, UAP and other programs like that only really work in the highest cost neighborhoods. As IBO mentioned, we need to have high rents to cross subsidize the affordable housing. So the only places it would work is Manhattan.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that'll be really helpful. I'll look into
Samir,
it.
would you wait till I call on you?
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
That was my bad. I called on him. I apologize.
That's my job.
Sorry.
Okay, but Samir had his question. Okay, any other questions? Julie, do you have a question?
No, we met with Isabel twice to kind of field her questions and get her started, but we wanted to introduce her to the committee so that you guys can be involved as well. And it's good, I don't know how long CB4 took to create their affordable housing plan, but we're glad to have her to help us start this. And an affordable housing plan is something that hopefully everybody in the committee will be able to contribute to.
One of the things I had asked Isabel to do was to help us figure out a simple way of presenting AMI and what it means and how it's calculated. I find it still very confusing and it's all over the place.
I would agree with that, yeah.
And I don't know, maybe there's some sort of calculator, an AMI calculator or something. We had talked about this before, but I know Isabel is going to see what she can come up with to try to get an answer to that, because it's always thrown at us. Oh, well, this is AMI, but we don't know what it means in reality. We don't know what in terms of dollars, and we really need to know that to make these decisions. Ankur.
So pleasure to meet you. Glad you're going to be on board. Looking forward to reading your report. I also especially like when you noted that you are interested in creating actionable items for our board that's informed by research and data and not just ideology. This is a highly ideologically charged area of policy. And so I'd be curious, to hear, I mean, you even had a question earlier from Zul that's pointed. And I think I would appreciate, if your openness to kind of hearing from a variety of sources, and I'd recommend you do that because there are folks that have very ideological agendas in this space, and that's unavoidable. It's an issue with a lot of passion, and if you get a lot of perspectives, I think you'll get a report that sort of reflects the diversity of views out there.
Thank you for the
Myrtle.
advice.
I just wanted to add to what Nancy was saying about the AMI calculation and whether or not anybody looks at sort of effective post-tax AMI levels. That just seems to me that would make more sense, because a lot of times it's just top line, but you don't know what people's carry home is.
Julie,
H&D is like specialized in explaining AMI, so we
Okay.
could invite them to our community board to speak about this topic. They have very dense research.
That'd be great. Yeah.
okay, let's do that.
Affordable housing.
Okay, so that'll be, well, maybe that's something that Isabel can talk with them about and maybe help them put a presentation together for us.
Especially since Nancy, you mentioned wanting to put more information on the website for people to use. Maybe that would be
Yeah,
helpful.
I think it's important. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, comments? We're very excited about having you here, Isabel. And we're looking forward to a great report. Samir, you have anything else? Any other questions? Miles? Anything?
Nope, no questions.
Okay, then, you have any questions for us, Isabel?
Not yet, no. I'll
Okay.
keep it easy for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think we're finished with our committee. Oh, okay, so let's talk about a little bit about this upcoming rezoning called MSMX. The way this is gonna work is DCP is going to come to us on the 29th of January. There will be no meeting on the 22nd, only on the 29th. And then we will deliberate on February 26th meeting. DCP can be at that to answer questions. In between those two meetings sometime, we are going to have a consultant's report, an independent consultant that we're going to hire. And that's in the process for now. And then we will have a full board vote on the 13th of March. So that's where it stands right now. So we're collecting questions, and if you saw, David Sigmund had quite a number of points he wanted to make. Maybe if the rest of you have them, you could send them all in, and Julie could collate them for us along with Isabel. Isabel's gone. Okay, so that's basically it. And then I think we can adjourn the meeting. That's basically all we have for today, but our next meeting will be the 29th of January. So please all respond to our request and reply that you're going to be here, because then we don't have to like figure out at the last minute, do we have a quorum or not? Thank you, everyone.